Welcome to Journeys with the No Schedule Man, exploring authentic stories of personal growth and lessons learned from people living true to themselves with creativity, passion, and purpose. For all past episodes, subscribe at iTunes or visit noscheduleman.com. And please connect, share, and contribute with a comment, rating, or review. And now, here's your host, the No Schedule Man, Kevin Bulmer.
I've been known to struggle with reality. It's not that it is any real mystery.
The question I have for you this week is, are you shaping and sharing your own story in your own way? Sounds like a simple question with an obvious enough answer. Most of us would probably think, we'd say, yeah, of course, that's exactly what I'm doing. But is it really? Are we really going our own way and saying what we want to say and in the way that we want to say and share it? Or are we really looking at what others are doing, following along in some of those footsteps and just kind of filling in the blanks, doing a lot of the same things as we see everybody else trying to do and say? Food for thought at the very least. What I'm finding is that it's a lot more challenging to be true to yourself, especially when you start getting into business and wading into the pool of office politics and competitors and markets and all of that kind of stuff, of having a voice that's clear and true, representative of you, your values, and your personality. That's something certainly that I've been striving for. And today, we're joined by somebody who, at least in my opinion, is doing exactly that. Welcome. My name is Kevin Bulmer. Today we're joined by Eric Gagne. He's had quite a journey of his own, from growing up thinking about going into teaching and then being interested in law enforcement and then having some time in his career in the automotive industry to ultimately leading to where he is now in the insurance field. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Eric was to share about how those changes happened and how he navigated through them. He goes over in great detail a process that he went through when he was trying to decide how the next chapter of his professional life was going to look. And I want to draw your attention to that before it happens. So listen for that, of what the process was, of how he decided what to do next, because I think it's really powerful and really valuable, and it's kind of the opposite of what a lot of us are trained to do. Now, the other reason why I really wanted to talk to Eric, besides the fact that I just did really enjoy spending time with him, is that he is, I think as I called him in this episode, a unicorn. He's different in that he creates his own content online, creates videos, shares posts, images, and he's in the insurance field. But he is doing just a fabulous job of being who he is, sharing who he authentically is, telling and sharing his own story in his own way, and he's building a really, really nice business because of it. Through the work that I do as a marketing consultant, coaching people and trying to help them understand what their unique message, what their unique story is, what they can share that would connect and create relationships with people or potential customers, as opposed to just spouting off the same advertising cliches and nonsense and constant sales offers that we see social media now is inundated with it. It used to be social, where we could just sort of go on and connect with all the people that we went to high school with and LOL and OMG our cares away. Now, it's just constantly offers and instructions and commands and hurry-ups and countdowns and all this stuff that's competing for our attention and always in front of us. So, when you're looking to create connection, and especially when you're doing that on behalf of the business, and most especially when that business is you, and I work with a lot of people in small business where that's the case. It's the case for me, so I can certainly relate to it. How do you cut through all that clutter and create and nurture a relationship? How do you create connection? How do you earn trust? I know all sorts of people say, you can trust me, I'm the name you trust, a trusted name since. That's just all nonsense as far as I'm concerned. You don't get to decide whether I trust you or not. If you want me to trust you, you've got to earn that, which is a process, which is something that has to be done repeatedly so that I know that you're going to be there for me when I need you. I might not want, in Eric's case, insurance right now, today, but I'm going to need it at some point. I might not want the big screen TV or the car or whatever it is that you're trying to shove down my throat with your biggest sale of the year and hurry in today, or you're never going to have the opportunity to get this kind of deal on furniture at a big box store ever. Go away. Like, people don't need to listen to that stuff anymore. And one of the ways that you can differentiate yourself from that stuff is to just be yourself, is to just be true to who you are and to share your own story. Don't take my word for it. Take Eric's. You can hear his story here in the coming minutes, and then if you like, join him on social media, visit his website, and you can see firsthand exactly what he's doing, because he's a little bit different from me. I'm a talking head, right? I went through the career phase of radio and speaking and all of this kind of stuff, and I'm way too infatuated with the sound of my own voice. I get it. I'm working on it. But I was kind of born into the whole media and talking too much thing. That's not part of Eric's story. Eric had to learn how to put himself in front of a camera and share openly on behalf of himself and his business. So, for so many of the people that I meet in my travels, speaking and doing workshops and at different conferences, especially those who are responsible for their own business in some way, shape, or form, that see the need to communicate in a more sincere and authentic way, but that respond to this kind of message with like a deer in the headlights look, which I get. I totally get. There's like a lot of people that say, well, what do I do? How do I do it? I see the need. You're making sense. But where do I start? How do I represent myself and wade into that pool of social media and online, and even spilling over into more traditional means of radio and television and newspaper and all that kind of stuff? All this cliche industry jargon advertising speak is becoming less and less and less effective because people have too much choice, and it's all at the push of a button, and they're holding it right in their hand with their phone, and they don't need to listen to the nonsense anymore. So it just becomes white noise. So again, back to where I was a moment ago, how do you cut through that? How do you stand out? Well, I know this sounds overly simple and maybe even a little bit Pollyanna, but if you're asking for my answer to that question, I would say be yourself. To be yourself. You're the only one of you that there is. You're the only one that has your story. You're the only one who's walked your journey, walked your path. And then all the limiting beliefs come flying in. Well, nobody's interested in that, right? Or I was conditioned to think that I shouldn't talk about myself because nobody wanted to hear about that. Well, listen to Eric tell his story, and you tell me whether there's anything at all in there relatable or not. Ups, downs, career changes, big choices, family responsibility, learning new things, uncertainty, how to unpack all that. I think it's pretty cool, and Eric does a great job of sharing really openly, and I hope that it's helpful to you. As you can tell by the sound of my voice, I feel passionate about this, and I take this seriously, and I really would like to see more people empowering themselves to be themselves and share in that way so that you might enjoy your work and the success that comes with it as much as Eric has. Now, one last thing before I turn it over to the conversation is that if it sounds like we're in a hockey arena, it's because we are. I should also mention that Eric's son and my son, through complete fluke, he and I connected last year in 2018 by talking about some potential event that we were going to work on together. And then by a complete fluke, our sons ended up on the same competitive hockey team. So we thought, well, rather than just sitting and waiting at yet another practice, and trust me, in competitive hockey, there are a lot of practices. Why don't we create some content? So I brought my recording equipment. If you can hear people running around and things in the background, there was a figure skating troupe, I think, that was using the rink near where we were, and you may hear their volume in and out of the conversation. And I just thought, well, that's just an accurate reflection of what was happening. I hope it's helpful, and I hope you enjoy it. Here is Eric Gagne, our insurance guy, on Journeys with the No Schedule Man. Eric, I've been interested to ask you to tell me if you can cast your mind back to what it was like as a young boy dreaming about growing up to sell insurance one day.
I wish it was that easy, Kevin, to say that that's kind of the dream of growing up with. Obviously, we all had dreams of playing some kind of major league sport growing up. For me, insurance was a second career. It was a late start into the career after working in the auto industry for many years. So unfortunately, I cannot say that was a dream of mine growing up, was to be selling insurance.
I knew it wouldn't be, which is why I asked you that, and I kind of figured you might laugh when I asked you the question, too. You should see his grin here. He asked me if we were going to do this with video. I said no, and now I'm regretting it with how big you're smiling. But I asked deliberately because so many of us, both of the guys sitting at this table, find themselves further down in life after some experience doing something different than what our school teachers are drilling us to. What are you going to be when you grow up? We don't necessarily know, when we're 10, 15, 20. But it's funny how life seems to have a way of finding that destination for us or putting it in our path.
For sure. Again, growing up, there was many things that I wanted to do. Areas where teachers are trying to direct you and where to go. And the success I have now in the auto or with the insurance industry, to me, is a lot to do with what took place in my prior career in the auto industry, with working with a number of people, working with different people every day, being in an environment where you're in close quarters and you have to figure out a way to get along and communicate well with people. And you're under, stress of working long hours and working many weekends. So to me, that led to the life skills that have contributed to what I feel is my success now in talking with people with, about insurance and how we can protect them. So I think a lot of, would I have gained this kind of experience doing something else? I probably think not. I think the auto industry probably lent a hand towards how I kind of communicate with people now.
I want to go back to that and to the transition to what you're doing now, and we'll talk about opening up and communicating and all those kinds of things that I see you doing that I admire so much. But let's go back a little bit, and sincerely this time, let me ask you a little bit about when you were younger. What were some of the things that you remember that you were particularly interested in?
There was, if I were to look at subjects in school, there was, subjects as in math and science and phys ed and participating in a lot of sports. There was always thoughts of wanting to get into teaching. Once I got into high school, things kind of guided me towards looking at policing as a profession. So I kind of got myself into college through the Police Foundation's program. So that's kind of where I saw myself. I thought that I was going to work somewhere in law enforcement in my kind of high school days.
I was wondering if you were going to give me a hint of a thread about some sort of an inherent personality trait of wanting to help people.
No question. I think that has been something I felt like has been always part of me, is being very empathetic. I think I noticed that at a very young age when I would, with my brother or with my parents or other family members or friends, I seemed to want to go above and beyond when it was trying to, either keeping the peace if we're out kind of playing around, or, just genuinely asking how they were doing. I felt like that was a big part of who I was growing up, and I think that kind of led me to thinking about wanting to help other people in that kind of law enforcement capacity. I think is kind of where that's, yeah.
So how did and there's to backtrack for a moment, there's an element of teaching to what you're doing in the communication and the marketing for what you're doing now too. Mm-hmm. But we'll come back to that. How did your path divert you into the auto industry?
Well, so I was in the law enforcement industry doing a couple of different security positions, private investigating as well, and my family worked at Ford Motor Company as well too, or in the auto industry. So it was a situation of just kind of being offered, here's an application if you want to do this. So I was 25 years old at the time and still trying to figure out, was I going to go into policing full time, or was I going to just stay in investigating, or, where was I going to go with this? And at 25, you felt like that was a time where you had to make that decision. It was like everybody around you was getting married at 24 or 25.
Right.
And it's not until now that you look back and you go, geez, 25 is still so young to try and figure it out. You don't have to figure it out by the time you're 25. So I took the route of, my mother came home one day. She had an application. Here you go. If you want a job at in the auto plant, I'll see what I can do. So it was pretty much, fill out the application and go in for testing. And having my mother probably in there probably helped. And having a number of people that were part of our kind of friends group with my parents that worked there as well too, I'm sure helped. So it was just, it was good timing. They were hiring a number of people at the time to kind of fill in for people retiring. So it worked well to get in there, and great benefits, great paying job. It was something that most people, when you started there, you worked for your 30 years and retired. So it seemed like a great plan at 25 to think, geez, at 55, 60, I could be retired, from this job. But, everybody knows the auto industry is a volatile type of industry and cyclical. So it's one of the things that you kept in the back of your mind, that it may not last forever for newer people coming into it versus the guys that started when they in the 1960s and 70s that could get 30 years out of the plant before closing, right, or before retiring.
What was the job like?
Job was long hours. We used to work 10 hours a day. There was 2 shifts, 10 hours a day. So long hours, noisy.
Was it repetitive?
There were jobs in there that were very repetitive. I think the camaraderie of the guys in the plant and the women in the plant really served well to keep you sane. Like you felt like you were part of a family in there. Mm-hmm. So it was fun to go to work some days. If you were thinking about the actual work of what you were doing, it's not very satisfying if you're looking for a job to want to contribute to things. But the friends and the basically the family you made within there really made it well worth it to go in and see them. They were your second family. You were spending more time with them than you were your own family. So to me, it was a bonding experience that you were all together. So the work itself is kind of a light industrial type work. It's not like your, back-breaking work for the most part in there. But dealing with the stress of doing repetitive work, you just have to get through that. And back then it was, look for the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And it was, you could never see yourself leaving because they treated you very well financially. And the union that we belonged to was protected you very well and did a good job of, getting the gains for the employees that they deserved it for the work that they were doing.
I am fishing a little bit by having asked you that question and just wondering about, while it doesn't sound like it was back-breaking physical labor, the repetition and the system of it, I guess, sounds to me like there isn't or wasn't a need for a lot of constant imagination and creativity, at least in that role. And I'm not saying that to disparage it in any way, but to try to, I'm processing in my own mind about where you are now and where this came from. And now I'm starting to understand, since you've told me a little bit about your background. But before we get to that, I wonder if you could describe for me what it was like when that came to a conclusion. What brought it to a conclusion, and how did that feel for you?
I think the first realization that we could be in trouble was in 2000. There was a plant in Oakville that was announced to be closing. At that time, that was my first real. That was only 2 years after being there myself. That was my first real kind of wide open eyed look to how things could be for the future, and putting some insecurity into what we were doing. So they closed that plant in 2000, and that was a very big truck plant that they closed. Then they did some reinvestment for us in 2008. We went down to one shift, I believe, in 2008 or 9. Again, another indication that things were not moving in the right direction, going down to one shift, having a bunch of people retire. So it was announced in, I believe, 2010 that we were going to close at the end of, somewhere in the middle or third quarter of 2011. So that was really I wouldn't say a shock, because, again, we kind of been prepped for 10 years.
I was just going to say, that's almost a decade of uncertainty. That's got to have some weight to it.
It does. We were doing well. I think most people just wanted to put it in the back of their head to say, geez, if we're doing really good and we're producing good cars, there's no way they're going to close us. And in hindsight, that's not the case, or wasn't the case with our plant. So, again, it wasn't a shock, but to me, I went there to work every day, and I enjoyed the people I worked with, but I always searched for more. Like, I'm always the type of person to think, there's got to be more to what I can do here than just do this. What is it? And having the plant come to a halt gave me that opportunity to say, here's my chance to figure it out, because I did have the opportunity to go with a lot of workers to go to another plant and just simply transition and try and wait it out for, a retirement in 10 or 12 years. So I felt like that this was 40 years of age. I felt like I was still young enough to be able to say, okay, let's change gears here and let's see what we can do, because I definitely was not happy with the actual work I did, but it was supporting my family, and that was the most important thing at that time, was supporting the family. So I was willing to kind of go through those stresses in order to kind of put food on the table and get the kids in sports and pay a mortgage. So it wasn't a big shock, but it was I looked at it as an opportunity to kind of change direction. Sort
of a personal and professional reinvention.
Yeah,
4 decades in, huh?
No question. Yeah, and again, there were other people that were in my little group that had already done this a year or two out, looking at where they could go. I remember one person in particular left even before the plant announced it was closing to go in the financial industry. So you knew it was possible by seeing people leave to go do something else. So you just had to be, for me, I had to be pushed to that point, because it was unheard of to try and really leave because of the compensation was that you knew out in the standard marketplace that compensation was hard to get to without a formal, maybe university education. We, in fact, had university-educated people that had full degrees that did not take advantage of that just stayed in the plant, right? Mm-hmm. So they understood, too, of the compensation of being in there to what they would have been starting out on their own, at an entry-level job in their profession that maybe they would have wanted to go into.
So when you're presented with this transition, how much thought did you give toward going back to policing as a path?
At 40, none at all. I mean, there was no thought. I mean, at 40, you would think that they're not going to take you in. They're going to want the young, woman or man out of, college, university, 22, 23-year-old, 24-year-old. So at 40, it didn't even cross my mind to think about going that route.
Was it sort of out of your system by that point?
I think it might have been. And also, I think having a family, probably put me in a spot to say, how would I go through this? How would I go through the process? And, realistically, could I handle the emotional part of it at 40 years of age with a family? My thought was, do I want to bring that stress home every day? I guess is realistically, I was thinking about what is, could that affect my family long term? Because it's a tough position, and it's a lot of emotional things go on when you're in policing that I think you just have to be of the right mindset to take that on and understand that it's going to sometimes maybe affect other, outside of policing, maybe in your family life as well too. And I just didn't even cross my mind, Kevin.
It's interesting, and I'm holding you here for the benefit, for my own personal entertainment and for the benefit of anyone listening. Well, we all go through transitions, some of them wanted, some of them unwanted, in our personal lives and in our work. And when we do, it can be really common, I think, for us to feel like we're the only ones, and the decision as to what to do next can seem a little bit overwhelming, and how do we choose and how do we know? So listening to, even, granted, we've only been talking for 15 minutes, but what you've shared already are things that I didn't know about you. You mentioned that when you were younger you were interested in teaching, so there's this inherent need to help and educate and contribute, the interest in policing, and so there's an interest kind of in authority and responsibility. And then clearly with your time in the auto industry, a really healthy work ethic had been established and cultivated. So, but at the same time, some of those other ideas that no doubt you had, you're looking around and thinking, there's maybe more of me that could probably come out, all kind of bubbled together into this witch's brew of what became where you are now. But tell me about that decision of why insurance. How did that show itself to be the next thing for you?
Yeah, that was so. At the time, I did not want to wait until 2011 for the decision to figure out what I wanted to do. So we knew in 2010. So I felt like it was time to figure out where to go. What do we do next? And again, fortunate that the auto industry and the union had set up a plan that you could leave, or you could take courses while you were still working, and they would pay for some tuition. So the part of the closing agreement incorporated educational funding. So that was really a good thing that we had negotiated in there. So I wasn't going to figure it out on my own. So I went to a career counselor and basically did some testing. I think it's a pretty standard generic testing that they do to figure out basically your personality and your life skills to, what occupations kind of match your personality. And I remember getting the printout, and there was probably 30 occupations on there. And to me, it goes back to the whole empathetic thing. Nursing was on there as like one of the first ones.
Really?
Right? Veterinarian, social worker. Those were, I think the law enforcement was in the top 10 as well too, and just slightly around the 10 or 11 or 12 mark, I think it said insurance. And so I think I remember at the time reading a book or hearing on a radio station one time saying, when you're starting to look at maybe reinventing yourself or looking at what you want to do in life, look at what you were strong at or what you enjoyed at those subjects in school, and see if you can find an occupation that kind of captures that skill set or that kind of education that you really enjoy doing. So mine was math. I really enjoyed math. So then I started looking at what occupations involved with math and insurance, and underwriter was what I thought I was going to do, Kevin. Right from the start of when the plant announced it was closing, I went to the career counselor, got that list, looked at what I liked to do, and an insurance underwriter was what I planned to go through for. And then I'm not sure if your audience or you yourself is, but basically insurance underwriter works for the insurance company and prices out what the cost is for the insurance. So they take in a number of factors into consideration and determine what level of risk there is, and then try and determine a price for that risk. So it was math, it was thinking. And it was working. I was really looking at a industry that was probably recession proof. So to me, everybody's going to need insurance, some form of insurance, and insurance is not going to go away. Yeah. So I did not want to go through another recession where I was left without a position and stuck on the sideline. So that's insurance, and then so underwriter. So that's kind of how I got myself into insurance was the help through a career counselor, and then basically it was figuring out a path, and the path was through the community college and looking at what steps I had to take in order to basically go back to school and get a diploma in a different field than what I was originally trained in, I guess.
I love so much of what you've shared, and I want to restate it in my own words for the benefit of anyone listening, because I want to make sure, if you're listening, that you caught what I heard Eric saying. And Eric, you tell me if you're hearing the same thing. For so much of my life, I'd looked at these kinds of things as, you choose the goal, you choose the destination, and then it all sort of fills in behind it. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And it's almost like throwing darts. Well, I'll go do this, and then life will be successful. What I'm hearing you describe is the process encouraging you to go back and look at who you are, what you value, what you enjoy, what skills and character traits have already shown themselves and proven themselves to be a part of who you really are and what makes you uniquely you, and then match that up with the conclusive thing, the destination, the goal, in this case, the career path. And that sounds, coming out of my mouth, really simple to say, but I wonder how many of us do that as sort of a default process, as opposed to thinking, well, I'll choose a result, a destination, a title, a career, whatever the case might be, as opposed to just pausing and going through that process as you described to really satisfy yourself that you're going to be bringing yourself with you and fitting comfortably into this role. Do you see what I'm getting at?
No, for sure. And I think the plant closing was probably the start of that, or maybe not the start of it, but it was the crux of it, because, again, that put me in a mindset of saying, I have to figure out a situation here, or an occupation where I'm not going to be put in the same position, where I'm going to have options. When most people left that plant, there was two options. There's three. You either retired, you either went back to school, or you went to the other plant. And so to me, two of those were not an option. It did not give me a lot of choice, so it was putting myself in a position where I could have choice and not be in a situation where I'm stuck on the sidelines and I don't know what I'm going to do. But on top of that, doing something that I enjoy doing something that I enjoy doing, versus, just picking a job and just going to it. Didn't want to be in the same position again of being out of work or trying to figure out, what I was going to do long term for my family, and for to set up a life where you can retire and enjoy some time.
We're going to jump over some parts here, because we're going from the career transition and into insurance, skip, and then into going from Eric Gagne, who is now in insurance, to our insurance guy, and the whole world of understanding branding and branding yourself and creating content and marketing and quote unquote putting yourself out there, putting your face on camera, talking to people online. How did that all come about? Like how and maybe when along the timeline did that develop?
So it was probably maybe 6 months into starting with my current position at the current company I'm at now as an agent, and I was fortunate enough to be in there to be able to start looking after some social media for the company, and that was 6 years ago. So I started up a Facebook page for the company, and then I started my own kind of little Facebook page. And initially I just used my personal Facebook page in order to, kind of advertise what I was doing, or kind of get the word out as to, here's Eric and this is what Eric's doing now.
How much did you know about all that going into it?
Like nothing.
Like advertising, marketing, and what I'll just call social media for a blanket
so it was
statement.
zero. I mean,
okay.
It was
good. That's a good answer.
Yeah, it was not it was 6 years ago was not a time where people had a crazy amount of knowledge, unless they maybe were in university or college taking marketing or something to get themselves into social media. I think even 6 years ago it was tough for people to look at social media as a way to maybe gain business, because it was again, 6 years ago, it was all about personal. There was no business done on Facebook, and it was even a year or two after that point that then Facebook came out with their Facebook business pages. So you could then incorporate business pages with your personal profile. So I think it was just, watching videos, reading books, looking at stuff that was already on Facebook. Sometimes you can learn just by watching and seeing what other people are doing. And there was a lot of that initially at the start to figure out what to do. And it's trial and error. I mean, there's a lot of things that won't work, but those are the trial and errors that you go through in order to figure out what does work, because it's not just going to happen overnight. It's not going to be one ad or one thing that you post that's just going to revolutionize and change and have everybody calling you. It's a series of messages put out there and branding put out there that build up this this brand. It's this tribe of followers that are going to follow you, and it's not going to come overnight. It's going to take years and years to do.
What are some of the things you remember, people, books, things that you mentioned that piqued your curiosity at that time that really you were diving into? I
think it was just more how you incorporate how you talk about business on your personal pages and in social media itself. Again, back then we were doing still a lot of print media, so we were in newspapers and magazines a lot. Okay. So there were a few times where I was asked to write a couple of articles for local magazines. So doing that, and then getting myself involved with the one thing I took on for the company was doing radio ads. The company had never had done radio ads before, so we started probably 4.5 years ago doing radio ads with a local radio station. So I would script it, and then I would go in and do the voiceover work for the ads, and we would change those out 2 or 3 times a year. So again, a little bit more reading, a lot of stuff on the internet, looking at what other people are doing, hearing how other ads sound to figure out how you want to create that content for radio as well too. So to me, it's been a learning curve all the way along, and it has never stopped. It keeps evolving. It's a never-ending, changing environment with social media and with advertising and branding. That it's whatever worked maybe last month or last year is definitely maybe not going to work next month or next year. So you have to adapt, and you have to pivot. I like to use the word pivot a lot, but that's essentially what you're doing here is you're pivoting to a different maybe form of advertising or branding, and you have to be open to do that, not be stuck and rigid into one channel, one mindset.
How and when did Eric Gagne become or add into the mix Our Insurance Guy?
So Our Insurance Guy started 2 years ago. Again, trying to figure out what name to use. So initially I started with Eric Gagne Insurance was the website and was the name. And it's
a logical name.
It's but it's a name that it just doesn't roll off the tongue. It's not going to be a name that, when people ask who's your insurance agent, they're not going to say Eric Gagne Insurance. It seemed fitting at the time, and when I look back at it, I remember seeing other agents that were doing the same thing. They were just putting their name with the insurance at the end of it. Mm-hmm. And so, again, you want to just get into the game and get in the sandbox and play. So that was my form of getting in the sandbox and playing, was coming out with a pretty generic name. Then it was 2 years ago, I wanted to figure out a different name. I just felt like that there had to be a different name that could somehow encompass how I am, how I do work, and just something that people could just say, this is who our person is. Because a lot of it's referral business, so you have to rely on other people remembering who you are. And that, to me, that's part of the brand, is people remembering who you are by the work you do. So literally, Kevin, it was just a matter of just going online and looking for different domain names. And it was like, I think I at one point came across Insurance Guy, And then I think I pretty much typed in Our Insurance Guy. And all I was doing at that time was looking for a domain. So
The web address, you mean?
yes, yeah, the web address. So I wasn't even necessarily looking for the brand name, but I was like, I got to come up with a website. What's a website name going to be? What's available out there? So it's just starting up, going into a website address checker, to see what's out there. And OurInsuranceGuy.com was taken, so I resorted to OurInsuranceGuy.ca. So essentially, I think the website was the first name. Then it was okay. I can go with Our Insurance Guy. That seemed pretty fitting. And when I, my insecurities were, well, let me go check with everybody else and see what they think.
I was just going to ask you whether there was some give and take, or whether you just literally sat there with GoDaddy pumping in alphabet soup.
That was the start of it.
Yeah.
I think that my wife was the sounding board, or was the first initial test, and she really liked it.
Yeah.
Then I think the kids, I went to them, but they're pretty biased, so they really liked it. And then it was taking it to our CEO, who was a great supporter, and our marketing manager at the time, who's also a great supporter, and saying, what do you think? What do you think of this? And they liked it. I mean, people that have been in the industry for a long time, I kind of look back to them just to kind of guide me as to what do you think of this? So in our industry, so I'm an agent for a company, so this is unheard of for an agent to actually try and brand himself outside of the branding of the company itself. Yeah. So the company itself, the insurance company, I'm branding me, and I've always read that it's you're trying to make the sale twice. You're trying to sell the company, and then I have to sell myself. So my focus is trying to build rapport, trying to build the business around myself, and hoping that people understand that the company that I represent, that company to me is the best company, that is the best fit for them, and hoping that they trust me to place them with a company that's a very good company. So I think the company is secondary to the brand itself of me, because I'm going to put them in the right position and give them the right coverages. But people have to buy into me first. There was many times where I would ask people, and still ask people today, who are you insured with? And a lot of times they're going to come back with the brokerage name. Well, the brokerage is not the insurance company. But that's who they think the insurance company is, because that's who they've always dealt with. They're not realizing the insurance company is some separate entity over here. The broker is just a middleman. I'm just a middleman to our company as well, too. So to me, to build a brand that at the end of the day helps the company, because the company's having the policies written with them, to me it's building the rapport, building the brand around what I can offer for service and guidance to them for that product.
It's a really interesting part of the equation, and one that we could probably talk about for a long time, because what you've touched on, in my view, Eric, is a really key issue that a lot of businesses are going to have to come to face, is how are people buying and with whom? And are you buying... I'm trying to think of some easy examples. Car dealerships are a perfect example. That the last couple that I've bought from, I've bought from the person, the rep, and I hate that they've promoted her, because I don't want to deal with another person, because I know she'll take care of me. And if she went to another make and model of dealership, I would follow her there, because I know I'm going to get taken care of. Mm-hmm. And yet there's still a real heavy-handed kind of corporate mentality of control of the brand, and it can only be that corporate brand. I'm generalizing irresponsibly here to try to make the point. So it seems to me, by its nature, a unique situation that you were in, that the CEO and the people behind the structure of I'll just call the business at large, were supportive of you, and seeing how ultimately they would further benefit by you being successful, which in fact is exactly what's happened, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And no question that a lot of the success that I've had with this brand has come from the people that support me within the company itself. You know, I owe them a lot to that, because at any moment they could have pulled the plug and said, no, you need to build this brand. You're selling for this company, you're building this brand. But it's really tough if you're an individual, because if you have a number of agents selling for the company, I offer maybe a different service than maybe what another agent or another broker offers, another level of service or different value. So how do I bring that across? How do I get that across to people that here's the product, but I'm the middle person, I'm different than the other agents? And I think that the company's been very supportive in letting me kind of run with this, because, you know, there have been other companies that have approached them and said, you're crazy to let him do what he's doing because he could just pick up and leave. But the company that I work for has been around for 150 years. Like, this is not, I don't take this lightly. This company that I work for, because it's been in this area for so long, I want to be a part of that. Again, that's going back to the kind of, you know, helping your neighbor, the empathetic kind of thing. And this company allows me to conduct business in a way that people see by sitting across from them at their kitchen table or at their business, or I'm out there when there's a claim. They see the value that I bring to the table. So I think the company has done a great job in supporting me. To me, the company at the end of the day gets to brand themselves too, because all the marketing material, all of the letterhead, the policies all have the company branding on them. I'm just the middle guy that has the rapport with the client or with the member, that they do get their branding there. They do. I get them in the door so that they can see what the company does, because I'm just one part of it. The claims department is there to really help the customer or help the member when there is a claim. They are a vital part of our organization, or any insurance organization, that I'm just one piece of the puzzle. But again, not having to do that double sell, I rarely have to talk a lot about the company, because people are buying into me and what I offer, and they're very trusting. I'm very blessed that the people that seem to follow along and the tribe that I've created really trust what I do, and so I owe them a lot too. The people that have entrusted me to look after their stuff too, I owe them a lot. So
I want to talk about how you've created it, because you've been very kind to share about how this has evolved, and starting with that Facebook page, I think you said 6 or so years ago, and then a couple of years ago with finding the name, and then and you've got the support of the people that you're representing and a company you believe in, so that all fits and that's all great. But I'm in front of people all the time, Eric, that run small to mid-sized businesses that feel like, okay, I can see maybe creating content and building a relationship with people and being a little bit more present. And you talked about, my word would be process of, you know, the habit of continuing that conversation as opposed to any one event or just sales offer. But most of the time I'll see from these people, even though they'll see, okay, I see the opportunity in it, but now the fear in their eyes, which I get because I have to face this myself too. What the hell do I do with it? What do I do? What do I say? Yeah. What do I type? Yeah. What do I put? Tell me what to do. So you had to have come to that bridge at some point. How did you cross it?
I'm always constantly on that bridge, Kevin.
Yeah, see, and that's. I hope you've heard that, and we'll write that down. There's no getting off the bridge.
That's the journey. That's the fun part of it, is trying to figure out what to do, where to go.
Yeah.
And there are so many examples on social media that you could follow and you can read about and you can understand. And again, it's not going to be, if you're starting to get into video, it's not going to be your first video that does something. It could be 50 videos from now before things start gaining traction. And you have to understand, it's not a one-hit wonder where you're going to be successful because you do a couple of creative things on Facebook or Instagram. It's a long journey. And this game, you have to look at it and start it now thinking, how is this going to look in 5 years or 8 years? Because people are too short-minded right now and thinking, what am I going to get out of it now? What am I going to get out of it now? And they have to really step back and go, okay, I understand I'm not going to get anything out of it now. I'm building for something for 5, 8, 10 years down the road when things are fully digital. Where am I going to be? Am I going to be lost on the map? Have I taken the steps? And now is the opportunity with Facebook and Instagram, because they're not charging anything just to post stuff. This is a free advertising platform that you can send stuff out there and have people see it. And there's not a better time to do that than now. So getting caught up in necessarily what you're posting, I don't know if you necessarily need to get caught up in what to do. Just do it. It can be anything. It could be something personal. It could be something business. People, they want to see you out there. And, the way that Facebook and Instagram work now is not everybody's going to see your ad every time you put something out or see your content. So it's a hit and miss type situation that even posting once a day or twice a day sometimes is not going to get you the result you're looking for. So, I think if you were a bigger company and you could afford it, I think hiring a full-time social media marketer would be one of the avenues to go. But I'm of the thinking that if you're trying to tell a story about what you can offer, the only person that can tell that story is you. At the end of the day, you're the person that's offering the value. You're the one that's going to be able to communicate that to your tribe in order to kind of build that following and build that brand.
What was it like the first time you looked into the camera to do a video? He's smiling again. I am wishing we'd done video. Now you're used to it, but the first time you thought, okay, I'm going to put a video out. What was it like?
Yeah, it's different. No question. But, it was...
How's it different? What's that mean?
Well, I think at the end of the day, here's what I think I learned from doing the first one. I didn't have to publish it, and I don't have to publish it. I just have to record it. So that should be the easiest thing, is recording it, because until you publish it, nobody else sees it. So you could literally do 10 or 20 videos and just have no one see them and just get good at it. Was I nervous doing it? Yeah, I still get nervous doing them, but I try to do them in a fashion now that I'm talking about what I'm talking about what I know to talk about. I kind of have a plan ahead of time that I'm just being me at the end of the day. And if you could do videos in a way that it's like talking with your client or your customer across the table from you, that's the exact same way that a lot of these videos need to be done. It's just if they're buying into you, they just need to see you. Now, getting into the fancier videos and doing video ads and stuff like that, there's a lot of help out there to do that. A lot of online apps that can help you out with that. But again, I think just getting in front of the camera, just hitting record, even if you screw up, just go all the way to the end. And at the end of the day, nobody has to see that video, but you got to get in front of the camera to do it.
What's happened with the business now that you're a couple of years into this Our Insurance Guy brand? What's been the effect?
It's been really good. The effect has been that I don't want to take anything away from print or radio, but I haven't had to rely on doing any print or radio. I think that the way I have branded has allowed me the referrals to grow the business on social media in a financially, how do I word that? It has grown in a way that hasn't taken a lot of the pocketbook, I guess you would say. It hasn't been a crazy expensive venture to do your own videos. If you have an iPhone or you just have a standard camera, you can do the videos. So posting the content, really, it's my time is really what's valuable. The most valuable part of this is my time. So on the expense side of it, hasn't been that expensive to advertise going through social media, that I haven't had to do the print or radio ads. or even the, again, there's a good thing about the, biz after biz and chamber events and the Rotary events. I get why they're there, but if you're at a point where you need some extra time, sometimes social media can allow you a little bit of time to be able to get your message out there and not have to rely on being at a biz after biz every single night trying to network with people. So I think it's just a different form of networking.
I think there's part of it too, Eric, that even if somebody doesn't watch the video or read the post or even whatever words might be attached to an image or something, there's an impression, there's just a psychological effect of he's there or she's there.
Exactly.
Or and as a means of the building of a relationship, and especially in the kind of industry that you're in, to earn that trust and to not always be bludgeoning people over the head with buy my stuff, 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 check it out, hurry. But I said to you a few weeks ago that one of my favorite posts was when there was something that had happened in the town where you do business, and you were there on that street, and there was a photo, and you could see that whatever was going on there, what was it that had happened? Electrical outage? Or
it was a
like
power
that?
surge through the phone system that caused a short circuit to many homes and electrical fires.
Yeah, so I had, because we've talked several times beforehand, I had an idea of how important it is to you to have that hand-to-hand look you in the whites of the eyes service as kind of a, air quotes, old-fashioned value, but something that there is still very much a value in. And so when I saw that post, I thought it told a story without me even having to read anything about it. I could see over your shoulder that there was something happening, and you were there, almost like a little news reporter. I told you afterwards. But without sharing that, the story doesn't get told, or I don't even have the opportunity to interpret it.
For sure.
But even if I don't read everything that you've posted, or I can't remember if it was just a photo or if it was a video, but I know that there was an impression on me, and I thought, well, there he is. It's clear. He's there. He's living what he says he does, and because of all of the stuff that's come before that, I have an idea of what those values are. But you can't ever, back to your point earlier, you can't ever turn that tap completely off for very long, can you?
No, it's tough, right? I mean, you can take breaks and try and regroup and stuff, but I find that you have to be consistent on getting your message out there. And the message can be many different messages. It doesn't have to be any one message. But for me in the business I'm in, my message is that I'm going to be there. I'm going to be readily available whenever you need something by phone or by text or email, knowing that somebody is on the other line and will take care of things or do whatever I can to take care of it. Again, in this kind of digital environment that we're in now with buying products online, there are a great number of people that still want to do business traditional way with not doing things exclusively online and want their most prized asset, which is their home, being looked after by somebody, not something. So again, it's getting that message out there that this is an option. This is something in your area that's available to you. You just need to see it. And it's not going to come from any one post or any one video, because you don't get everyone on social media at the same time, so it's hit and miss, and you don't want to bombard them with the same message over and over and over again. So you're trying to build the brand, you're trying to tell the story about who I am, what I do, and the who I am doesn't just stop with work, it's personal too, right? So it's trying to get that message out of, hey, I'm a family guy, I'm here to help. Like, this is not some kind of shtick or some kind of act here. This is what you're going to get. And I think doing those videos shows people exactly what I do. And again, those are videos all need fine tuning because you're out there and you're not sure what to do in those situations and how it'll look and what how you'll sound. But at the end of the day, it's there, and you get people commenting and people liking it, and that. If at the end of the day, if I've helped one person realize that, geez, maybe we should be looking at this, or that's great that Eric showed us this. We didn't even know that this happened in the area. it's not about maybe selling something or offering something. It's just being there, being visible. And I think, again, in this day and age where everyone's so busy, at least they can see me on social media and they can see me active. I'm not that insurance agent or that broker or business person that they say, geez, I haven't even seen the guy for 5 or 6 years. I have no clue what he's doing or who the guy is. They see me. I make sure that everybody that kind of gets on board on the tribe or within the tribe of insurance with us is part of our social media network, so they can see us. And so I try to do the same thing with the brand of the actual company as well too. So trying to incorporate that a little bit with the company to promote the company as well too.
Where do you see it going? Like, what are you curious about in the days, weeks, months, and even years ahead that you haven't figured out or implemented yet?
I'm really curious to see if the stat is going to hold true that they say that 80% of content that's going to be consumed will be video content by the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020. That stat has been out there for a couple of years now, and if that's the stat, 80% of what we're going to consume through social media or through just searching online with our phones and our tablets and our computers is going to be video content. What are we going to do here to make sure that we're there and we're present? When I think selfishly about the insurance industry, I don't think we do a good enough job as an industry to create the videos to show people what we do. So I kind of want to see the industry as a whole get better at promoting what they do through video content. So video is going to be a big thing. Vlogging is another thing that really interests me, whether or not that could be something. But again, we always say insurance is not sexy. So it's hard to come up with things that people will want to consume for content for insurance. So it's always a learning curve again for my industry itself, because I don't have a tangible product in front of me that I can post pictures of all the time. I have some businesses that I look after that are extremely good on social media because of the products they have, and just posts of their products gain so much traction. And here I'm trying to do it where I'm trying to get traction on my brand and on my value that I bring, and that's can be tough when you don't have a product per se.
Well, your face, your values, I suppose I was going to say that's the product. I suppose the various forms of insurance and that service could be categorized. But really, I mean, when the phone rings, it's because somebody has a need or because they just flat out want to talk to Eric. They've got a question, and in that sense, you're...
Yeah, no question. Like when we get calls, it's usually there's something's gone wrong, right? There's something that's, my insurance has gone up, or I bought a house, or I'm being canceled, or this or that. So we're usually solving a problem, right? So I feel like I do a very good job of solving those problems, whether or not they're problems that I solve that in turn relate to business for our company. There are a lot of times that I'm solving problems and I'm giving people referrals to other brokers or other insurance companies for them to do the business with them, because that seems to be a better fit for that person than it is for us. Mm-hmm. And so I have no issue pushing business away if it's a better fit for them to be with somebody else. So again, that to me, that's the empathetic helping nature of what I do, to help people not necessarily be with me, but more I'm educating them and giving them help to solve their problem, whatever that problem is.
How much fun are you having?
It's fun. It's busy.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
It is, but a lot of my fun is, again, meeting with people. The social media is fun. You have to be open-minded to be able to shift and pivot and to continually learn and read and research as to what's going on and what's happening. But again, there's so much and so many content creators that are on social media that you can look and see what other people are doing. So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel You just have to incorporate what they're doing into kind of what you're doing as well, too.
I admire what you're doing. You're kind of a unicorn, really. And well, I know all kinds of people who are speakers and coaches. You can put them up in front of large groups of people, and they're right at home. You put a camera in front of them, and it's like they need a snake charmer to make it go away. Yeah. It's a different discipline.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily for everybody, but for those that can embrace it. And I think you really hit on the key, as I perceive it anyway, Eric, is that the only person that can really share your story is you. And your story is definitely worth sharing for each and every one of us, isn't it?
Yeah, no question. I think if you're in business and you want to get that story out there, there's no better person than to have you get that message out there. How you do that, what ways you do that, that's where you would have to figure out. But if you can incorporate yourself into that for your business, I think your tribe will really appreciate that, and you'll grow your business by you being the face. For the most part, most small businesses that we deal with, and probably that you deal with, Kevin, probably they are the face of the business. They don't maybe have other employees or other staff, so they're the face. And to me, that's who's got to get out there. And at the end of the day, you get your content out there. You don't care what other people think. Just get that camera going. And, it might take 10 or 15 videos to start feeling really comfortable, but you'll see your progress from day one to maybe video number 30, and you'll see the difference of how you've come along, I guess, from being uncomfortable to being comfortable, I guess, on camera.
Yeah. What you've shared is really going to be helpful to some other people that I know are struggling with this. A lot of people are struggling with this. I struggle with it, and so do you here and there, but it's fun to have help and to collaborate. Thanks so much for investing this time. It's been a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
If you'd like to connect with Eric and learn from what he's doing, it's easy to find him. If you know his name and you've got a connection to the internet, you'll find him at ourinsuranceguy.ca. The .ca is important. I know there are people that listen to this podcast from around the world. .ca is our Canadian version of .com. So ourinsuranceguy.ca. His links to his YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook pages are all right in the upper right-hand corner of his website. At least they were at the time of this recording. I'll make sure all those links are on the blog post for this episode, which is number 83, that you can find anytime you like at noschedulemanpodcast.com. I want to thank Eric again for joining us. That was a lot of fun, that conversation. If you liked what Eric shared, I think you'll also really enjoy these episodes. So episode 80 came to mind with Alina Kalinescu. Alina and I have become great friends since doing that podcast episode last year, and she came to mind as I was talking to Eric simply because she's had such a turn in her life's work, kind of like what Eric has, to steer it into something more along the lines of what really fulfills her spirit and her soul and sense of contribution. That's episode 80, which is called Becoming One with Ourselves. I think you'll also like episode 79. It's called Compete Every Day with Jake Thompson. Now, Jake has taken that brand, Compete Every Day, and turned it not just into clothing and speaking and the other things that he does, but he's built a whole story around it. He's got a community built around it. There's a whole kind of ethos around what it means to compete every day. A terrific example of being yourself and building that story around it and that emotional buy-in and the connection and the ongoing relationship. So have a listen for that. Jake Thompson in episode 79, Compete Every Day. And also episode 75 came to mind. Beth Allen. It's called Flush the Fear. Beth is another one who took a real big right turn in her life and career. She does a terrific job of sharing original content. She's very active on social media. She does a lot of events. She's really, really a cool person doing some really neat stuff. Beth Allen is in episode 75 of this podcast called Flush the Fear. Now, you can find those and all past episodes of this podcast anywhere around the world on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, most places that you find podcasts. And, of course, they'll always be there at noschedulemanpodcast.com. If you'd like to connect with me, that would be cool. Just look for No Schedule Man on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Or you can always just visit me at my virtual world headquarters. I don't know what that means. KevinBulmer.com. NoScheduleMan.com will take you to the same place. Thanks so much for listening. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope you'll join me again for the next leg of Journeys with the No Schedule Man.
Just a little deja